There's a point many people reach where they begin to notice something difficult to explain. No matter what changes, no matter what improves, there's still a sense of not being fully settled. Life moves forward, things develop, progress is made, and yet somewhere in the background the feeling remains. A sense that things are not quite complete, that something is still not resolved. And for a while, this can be interpreted in a very straightforward way, that it simply means there's more to do, something to improve, something to figure out, something else to reach out towards. And so naturally the effort continues. You adjust something, you refine something, you move towards the version of life that seems it will finally feel settled. And for a while, the effort appears to work. A change is made, a goal is achieved, a situation improves. And for a moment, the sense of tension softens. Things feel closer to how you want them to be. But then gradually, the feeling of tension often returns. Not necessarily in the same form, but recognizable. A quiet sense that something isn't quite finished. And when it returns, the conclusion often seems obvious. Something must still be missing. Something still hasn't been resolved. And so the process continues. Another adjustment, another improvement, another attempt to finally arrive. But over time, something begins to stand out. The pattern itself. The way the feeling softens, then returns. The way each improvement only brings temporary relief, but not a sense of lasting completion. And over time, a question starts to form. Why does this feeling keep coming back? Why does it never fully resolve? Because if the process were working in the way it appears to promise, there should be a point where effort is no longer needed. A point where things finally feel settled, where nothing more needs to be adjusted. But for many people, that point never clearly arrives. Instead, there's an ongoing sense of movement towards it. A sense of always getting closer, but never quite arriving. And that raises an interesting possibility. What if the experience of not feeling fully settled isn't a failure of the process, but a reflection of how the process itself is structured? Because if the feeling of unease is being interpreted as something that needs to be resolved, then every time that feeling appears, it restarts the process. Something must still need attention. Something must still need to be adjusted. And because the feeling continues to appear time and time again, the process continues as well. Not necessarily because it's moving towards a final point of completion, but because the feeling's being interpreted in the same way again and again, which means that this sense of not arriving is being continually renewed, not because progress isn't being made, but because that sense of something still missing, something not quite there, keeps returning. And when that feeling keeps returning, the conclusion remains the same. We're not there yet. Something's still not resolved. And so there's movement towards that final version of yourself that will feel settled. But if that version is being defined by the absence of a feeling that continues to reappear, then it may not exist in the way that it's imagined, which would explain why the feeling of never arriving can persist. Even as life changes, things are improving, progress is being made. Because the experience is not necessarily leading to a final state. It's responding to how the feeling is being reinterpreted again and again, which raises a very different kind of question. What if this feeling of not being settled cannot be permanently resolved through improvement? And if that's the case, then what is all this effort trying to reach? And that's something we'll definitely further explore.